Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're really excited to hear all about wholesale. But what I really want to know before we get into that is your journey, like how you even started. Where you did you start off as just like RA, OA? How did this all become? And then please, let's get into wholesale.
Yeah, definitely. So, really, as far as my background, so I started selling on Amazon in 2017. So, I graduated from college May 20th of 2017, and literally like the day after I graduated, I started going around to all the thrift stores in my town and doing, I mean, essentially retail arbitrage, but I was really just buying books, used books from thrift stores. As you guys know, right, you can buy these books for 50 cents, a dollar, $2, and I was selling them for 10, 50. I mean, I found like well, I think the first book I ever bought to resell on Amazon, it was a C++ textbook. And I bought it for like a dollar and it sold for like, 30 bucks, 40 bucks. And that to me at the time was just mind blowing. And really I'd say the second semester of my senior year of college, I was just researching different side hustles, like things to kind of make money on the side, because it had like a 2 month gap between graduation and between when I was going to move to Chicago to start my first full-time job. So I spent the whole second semester like researching the Amazon business model and then graduated and like hit the ground running right away. So started with used books and then did the used books thing for about 2 months. And then I moved to Chicago, which is when I had like my first full-time job. That's why I moved out there. Now, when I got to Chicago, I didn't have a car, right? So I didn't really have a way to drive around and keep sourcing these used books because there's not just like a thrift store in every corner like there is in most cities. So what I decided, I'm like, well, if I want to keep selling on Amazon, which I did because I enjoyed it, I was like, I'm going to have to find another way to do it. So that's when I discovered online arbitrage. And that's when I discovered Chris Grant, who I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with him, started watching some of his YouTube videos. And really, this was right around the time when tactical arbitrage, that tool, which again, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with, this is right around the time when TA was, I think Alex created it in like 2017, 2018. So it was like brand new. It was super innovative. Like people were using it to find deals on products on all these different websites to do online arbitrage with. So I really dove into the deep end with tactical arbitrage, started doing online arbitrage. This would have been really like mid 2017, end of 2017, all the way through 2018. And then it's funny, right at the end of 2018, I was actually ready to, like, I was about to quit Amazon. I was ready to give it up. I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm making some side money, but it's nothing crazy. I had my corporate job, and I'm like, maybe I'll just go focus on that. But I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a very successful entrepreneur, and he was like, he's like, it's around this time that he's like, probably 95% of people in your position just end up quitting and they go and either they do something else or they just go pursue their job, which is fine. He's like, you can do that. But he's like, it's about 5% of people that actually hang in there and stick with it and try to make something of it and make it work. And I was like, that really resonated with me at the time. So, but I decided to get serious. I'm like, all right, I'm going to stick with Amazon, but there's got to be a better way. Like online arbitrage is cool. It's good side money, but I want something that's more scalable. I want something that's more consistent. And so it was right around that time. It's like I had that conversation with my friend. I'm always looking on YouTube for new people to watch and new videos. And it was around that time that I discovered Wholesale. And I discovered Wholesale from watching a guy, Larry Labarsky. His Watch Me Amazon is his YouTube channel. He's like OG in the Amazon space. At the time, I think it was him and Dylan Carter were the only two people that I knew of that were putting out wholesale content on YouTube. And so it was a Larry Labarsky video that I found. This would have been end of 2018, like November of 2018. And in this video, it's pretty much him he's like screen sharing and going through a Google Doc. And in the Google Doc, he's just breaking down the economics of wholesale. So to put it simply, he's like, all right, if you decide you're going to do wholesale and you've got, let's just say $5,000 in capital for inventory, you spend that $5,000 on inventory, you sell through that inventory, and then 60 days later, now you've got $6,000 roughly, right? You spend that 6,000, 60 days later, you've got 7,200 or 7,500. And he kind of just broke down that math step by step. And it really was a light bulb moment for me because it was like the compounding effect of money and action. I'm like, oh, okay. If if I have some amount of capital to start with, I can keep snowballing that capital. And as long as I'm making good inventory buying decisions and I'm keeping my overhead low, then you can really snowball your capital pretty quickly with this business model. And so I went from, at one point, just a couple of weeks prior, planning on quitting Amazon, all the way to deciding, you know what, forget it, I'm going to double down, and I'm going to double down on wholesale. So it was really right at the beginning of 2019, January of 2019, is when I decided to double down on wholesale. I remember that's when I started my LLC and hit the ground running with that. I mean, I started cold calling like 20, 25 brands per day at that point. And, I had no idea what I was saying. I didn't really have a coherent sales pitch, but did that through all of 2019. And probably 2 or 3 months into 2019 was when I landed my first solid brand direct wholesale account. Shortly after, I got my second one, and that whole year was spent going after brands directly. And then 2020 hit, and well, I guess to even back up a little bit, mid 2019, I actually quit that corporate job, moved back home to North Carolina, and wasn't even really making that much money with wholesale at the time. We were maybe making like a couple $100 a month in profit. But I was of the mind, I'm like, you know what? I just want to go full time in this business. I think I can make it work. I want to try it. I hated my corporate job at the time. And in my mind, it was like, okay, worst case, if this thing just crashes and burns, I've got a really good story to tell a potential employer that, like, hey, I quit my corporate job to start this thing and it didn't really work out, but I got all this sales experience. I made all these cold calls. I learned about finance. I learned how to read a P&L, like all these skills that you learn being a business owner. So in my mind, the worst case was, okay, maybe I have to start over from zero in terms of money, but like I've got a lot of good experience. I could probably get a really good job again if I had to. And so that was the mentality. And so I moved home and really just, long story short, from then to now, mixed some distributors into the business model. So started working with some distributors. Then COVID hit. And as you guys know, who were selling during that time, that was a time when, if like, the hard part was just getting your hands on product. If you could just get a hold of product, you could sell it. So like that whole year was crazy. It was a really good year, made good money just trying to like wheel and deal to get inventory in hand and like sweet talk the supplier into selling me the hand soap instead of that other guy, and just doing that whole thing. And from then I've really just since just kept doing the same thing. It's like been doing the same thing for the last 5 or 6 years, just double down on what worked. So I know that was a super long-winded intro story, but hopefully that was helped shed some light on kind of the path. And the other thing I want to say too is that I think people that are doing arbitrage, because I assume this is heavily an arbitrage group, I think mostly retail arbitrage, right? And
It's a, but yeah.
okay, yeah, and I think people that do arbitrage have a huge advantage when it comes to jumping into wholesale, and we can talk about why that is. But I mean, really, the easiest way to transition is just look at the brands that you're already selling in your arbitrage business and just start to focus on starting with sourcing those in wholesale, right? If they're big mega brands, and start finding distributors for those exact products that you're already sourcing arbitrage. And if they're smaller mid-sized brands, and just go directly to the brand and try to open a wholesale account. And people are shocked a lot of times at how easy, I say easy in air quotes, because it's easy in the sense that all you got to do is make the call and ask. You're not always going to get a yes, but people are shocked at how often they're like, well, hey, I've been selling this brand for years, in OA, and I just called the brand one time and asked to open a wholesale account, and they said yes. And sometimes it just takes making that initial call to kind of break through that limiting belief and that barrier to get that first wholesale account.
Thank you for that, Corey. I like that. First of all, I like that you started with books and thrifting. I think a lot of us can relate to that. I know our first sale was a book I had gifted to Andrew, and he had sold it for a loss. So, but we got the proof of concept. I think a lot of us started in books. And books are still a profitable business for
Oh
those
yeah.
that are not quite into wholesale or not sure your angle. We just signed on a new 7-figure client at our prep center, and he's like 90% books. So it's still profitable out there. But I wanted to touch base on something that you said. You just picked up the phone and you just called. You had no prior, like, you didn't know. You just picked up the phone and you called. And so you're just like, I'm gonna wing it. And people get hung up on that, right? People get hung up on picking up the phone and just calling somebody.
Yep.
Uh, like, do you get scared when you call and order a pizza? Like, no, you're gonna it's the same thing. You're just putting in an order, and or you're trying to make an order. The worst thing that they can say is no, and then you pick up the phone and call somebody else. Um, that's coming from somebody who's been in a sales job, so and had people yell at me and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've had a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, and just to, and not to cut you off, but when I want to just kind of touch on that, right? A lot of times, like you said, I mean, people's biggest roadblock is just that fear of rejection and picking up the phone and making the call. But one thing I want people to really think about is that the beauty of this business is when we're cold calling, whether it's a brand or a distributor, you got to think about the fact that we are calling these suppliers offering to give them money, right? It's not like we are calling these people and saying, hey, can you give me money? Hey, can you buy my products? It's the opposite. And in reality, we have the easiest job in the world. We're calling a business, and yes, they don't know who we are. Yes, it's a cold call. But if we just have a normal human conversation, it's pretty clear that, like, hey, we are calling to put money in their pocket, right? If anything, our call to them should be like the best call they've gotten all week. Because if we can just position ourselves as a legitimate, knowledgeable business person that's ready to spend money with them, I mean, and if I'm them, like, that's the best call I've ever gotten. It's a qualified customers calling me out of the blue, right? So I think when you take that mindset shift and you kind of switch that perspective, you realize that, well, maybe these calls aren't so bad after all, and that I can actually add a lot of value to these suppliers.
Yeah, and you're making their job easier. They don't have to do the cold calling that you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't have to go find qualified leads. You're literally a qualified lead calling them, and that's exactly what they want. They want to pick up the phone and sell something.
Yep.
Uh, like you said, you just have to position yourself. So I had a list of questions. If anybody else has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I wanted to say, so I have seen some horror stories when reaching out to wholesale suppliers. People are thinking that they're going to get great deals in the Telegram chats, all these random people, like sketchy websites that is literally just a website and then it says talk to me on Telegram. Like, how do you recommend just getting after it, like finding the wholesale actual distributors and things like that? And I wanted to know if you actually have a Telegram horror story for yourself.
Yeah. So I'll touch on both of those. So, and it's a good question, right? Because I see it so often. Like, it's the most common issue that I see in wholesale is somebody decides they want to jump into wholesale, or maybe they're a newer seller and they're not super experienced, and they get trapped into buying from, like you said, like one of these Telegram suppliers or one of these sketchy wholesale suppliers. And I hate to say it, but there are so many suppliers out there who their whole business model is just to prey on unsuspecting or unsophisticated Amazon or just e-commerce sellers. So because of that, and I can sit here, like, I have three criteria that I look for in distributors to make sure that they're more than likely qualified and more than likely authorized. But I can talk about those criteria till I'm blue in the face, but that doesn't prevent, sometimes sellers just kind of get greedy. They see a good deal and they're like, oh, well, this is a 40% ROI product. Never mind the fact that the guy has no website and it's just some random person I'm talking with on Telegram. I'm going to buy it anyways. So I think that just I would be, best serving people, just telling them and teaching them. This is kind of what I teach these days, is just go directly to the brand, right? If you're new to wholesale, forget about distributors. Don't worry about going to distributors. Just focus on going directly to the brand. And the beauty of that strategy is that even if you don't end up working directly with the brand, you can always ask the brand who their distributors are. And the reason that works so well is when the brand refers you to a distributor, you know that distributor is authorized, right? The brand told you to go to them. So again, if you cold call brand A and brand A doesn't want to give you a wholesale account, but brand A is willing to refer you to one of their distributors, well, when you contact that distributor, you got to keep in mind that that distributor is going to carry brand A's products, but they're also going to carry 100 other brands products or 200 other brands products. So that to me is the safest and easiest way to work with distributors is by starting with brands and let brands point you to distributors. I sellers run into hot water when they do it backwards, when they try to start with distributors. So I'll start with that. And then you asked if I have any like Telegram horror stories. So not really any from myself. I mean, I like there's one supplier. Well, also I got the caveat too is that I feel like that's gotten a lot more prevalent in the last like 2 years as these like Telegram suppliers or these really sketchy unauthorized suppliers. Because like there's a supplier that I bought from 4 or 5 years ago. They're called Min Max Deals, and they're just like a wholesale. They're just like a closeout liquidation cosmetics supplier, right? 4 or 5 years ago, that was fine. The paperwork requirements weren't nearly as stringent as they are now. The product was authentic, so there was no issues. Like I bought from them, no problem. Sold on Amazon, no problem. Everything was fine. But nowadays, I would never recommend somebody buy from them because they are not authorized. They are just a liquidator, right? Nowadays, because the rules have changed, that's no longer okay. Now, I guess the biggest horror story I could relate is so there's a guy in my community, his name's Manu. He was putting together a wholesale PO and he was newer to wholesale, so he got really excited. He was like, "Hey man, I'm putting together this PO. It's going to be like 25, 30K. Can you look it over for me before I place it?" Because that's what I tell all my people. I'm like, "Guys, before you put in a PO, I will always look it over for you. And like, please let me look it over for you to hopefully, either help keep you from making a mistake or help you double down on a good buy, right? Hopefully, make you even more money." So he sends me over this PO and I'm looking through the products and I'm like recording a Loom video breaking down his PO. And one of the first things I notice is that the first ASIN on the PO is ranked like number 3 in beauty. It's literally the third best-selling product in the entire beauty category. It sells like 150,000 units a month. And the only seller on the listing is the brand themselves. There's like one other FBA seller, and the listing is transparency enabled. So I'm like, okay, right away, red flag. Like this, brands like these don't just sell to Amazon sellers, especially not ones that, are newer and that are only, I say only buying 25 to 30K worth of product, but you got to keep in mind that this product's selling millions of dollars per month, right? So right off the bat, that's a red flag. And though, so I'm going through the rest of the PO and it's same story. So I reached out to him. I'm like, "Hey man, first of all, like don't place this PO yet. Give me some clarity. These are transparency enabled ASINs. So are you getting the transparency labels?" And he was like, "Yeah, supplier said transparency labels are on these products. Like it's good to go." And I'm like, "This is really shady." I'm like, "Do not place this order until you've called the brand." I'm like, "Call the brand. Just go on their website, find their 1-800 number and call them and ask them, say, 'Hey, is this supplier XYZ that I'm about to buy from, are they one of your authorized distributors?'" And he was like, "Okay, I'll do that." So like same day, he calls him up and he immediately messages me. He's like, "Dude, thank God you just saved me." He's like, I talked to one of the reps at the brand and he was like, "No, we've never heard of that supplier. We have no idea how the heck they got our like if they actually have our inventory with transparency codes on it, like that's a like a huge issue for us. Like, thank you for pointing that out. But no, no, they're not authorized. They should not have legitimate product. They should not have transparency enabled product." And he's like, "We're going to look into that, but no, don't place that order." And so, I mean, literally saved him from spending, 25, 30 grand because even if the product was legit and had the transparency codes on it, as soon as he jumped on that listing, the brand would have probably IP'd him or like kicked him off. And so he was smart and he tried to spin that into a relationship with the brand. And he was like, "Oh, well, glad that I could help you guys out. Glad that I could kind of point out this activity for you guys. Well, now that I have you, is there any opportunity for me to be authorized or work with you guys in any way?" And, they shot him down, but I love the initiative. And I was like, "That's exactly what I would have done. There's no harm at all in asking." But again, like long-winded story to show that the best way to verify a distributor is to call the brand and ask.
I love that tip, and I also love that you like handhold your students through the whole process too. And you're like, let me look it over first.
Yeah, well, especially because I'm like, dude, 30 grand is a lot of money. And like for your first PO, like I don't care how much capital you have, you shouldn't be spending 30 grand on your first PO.
So I had a question about that first. So for POs, like, is it just an ACH transfer or can you pay with credit card? How does that work?
So every supplier is different. Now, yeah, in that case, I don't know. That probably, I want to say he was supposed to wire them. So if he was going to wire them and, the product was fake or it wasn't a real supplier, like he's out that money. So I always recommend people pay with a credit card, prepay with a credit card if you have to, because, you can always charge back if needed. But with that said, I mean, some suppliers are old school. They only take ACH or they only take wire. But for the ones that do only take ACH or wire, I still pay with a credit card. I use a service called Melio, which there's a couple services like it. There's Melio, there's Plastic, there's a couple different services that offer this, but it essentially allows you to pay with a credit card, but then your supplier gets cash, right? So they charge a 2.9% fee for that. But I use a Chase Ink Business Premier credit card, so I'm paying the 2.9% fee, but I'm getting 2.5% cash back from that credit card. So it's basically like I'm only paying 0.4%.
That's
So it kind of cancels out. And again, you get to use your credit card instead of having to part with that cash right away.
That's really smart. We have some questions in the comments already.
Yeah.
Somebody says, does wholesale have any protection over everything that's currently going on with Amazon and Walmart?
So it depends on what you mean, like it depends on what you mean by protection, right? Now, what I will say is if you're buying directly from the brand, like I'm suggesting you do, then that's going to put you in the best possible position for ungating and for beating any sort of account health issues, right? Like, for example, we got a product authenticity complaint yesterday on a product that we buy directly from the brand. And now people that are doing arbitrage might freak out because they're like, oh, Amazon, even though the product's legit and I have a Walmart order confirmation or whatever for this product, you know how Amazon is. Sometimes they'll deny it and sometimes they're finicky. But if you've got that invoice directly from the brand, you're bulletproof, right? You still might have to submit it a couple of times, but there's no reasonable way Amazon could deny it, right? It's literally directly from the manufacturer. There's no supplier's invoice. It is the supplier. So just in general, when you're buying directly from the brand, in my opinion, and I think it's really a fact, you are as safe as you could possibly be. Definitely more so than doing arbitrage, more so than if you're buying from a distributor as well.
Thank you for that. And I guess also another thing was maybe Walmart, the CPC for like toys and stuff. Do you sell toys or what is your recommendation on that?
Yeah, so I've sold toys in the past. I honestly haven't sold toys in quite a while. But I mean, again, same logic applies where if you're buying, let's say you're buying from a toy brand, then what better way to get a hold of the CPC is if you have a direct relationship with the manufacturer and you have that point of contact at the brand, right? I mean, I've like I said, I don't sell many toys, but I've sold hazmat products where, Amazon will ask for that, like the SDS sheet, the I think like safety data sheet. And, if I'm buying directly from the brand, sometimes it's been as easy as just emailing our sales rep says, "Hey, Amazon's asking for this SDS sheet. Can you just forward me the SDS sheet for this product?" And they'll send it right over. And then you upload it to Amazon, and then a day later, you're approved and you're good to go. So same logic could apply to like a CPC, I think.
Thank you. And then Carlos, we'll get you in a second. There was another question in the chat before you raised your hand. Armani says, do most wholesale or distributors have a problem with Amazon sellers? And how do you position your type of business on that initial call?
So I would say most wholesalers and distributors have a problem with unsophisticated Amazon sellers, but they absolutely love professional Amazon sellers who are good customers. So as far as how to position yourself, if you've ever watched any of my content before, you've heard me talk about just being as specific as possible, especially when you're calling a distributor, right? Because distributors and brands really, but both kinds of suppliers, they're getting calls every week, multiple calls a week from people just like me and you, wanting to open a wholesale account, wanting to buy and sell their products. But what 99% of those people aren't doing is they're not being specific. They're not telling the distributor, hey, this is exactly what I want to buy in this exact quantity and for this price, right? Most Amazon sellers are saying, hey, I want to open a wholesale account. And if you're a distributor and you see that email or you get that call, you're going to be like, well, okay, well, what do you want? What do you want to buy? So the best way to set yourself apart and the best way to position yourself is, let's just say you're calling a distributor. Well, it's doing 30 seconds of research before you make that call, going onto that distributor's website. And pretty much every distributor is going to have a list of brands that they carry on their website. And you can just name drop a couple of brands. And it doesn't even have, they're not even going to hold you to it. You've just got to show that you've done some research. So if I'm, for example, I love using tools as an example because I've sold a lot of tools. But if I'm going to call a tool distributor, then when I call that tool distributor, I'm not going to say, hey, can I open a wholesale account? I'm going to say, hey, I see you guys carry Milwaukee, Lyle, and Bosch. There's a few specific products from those brands that I'm interested in buying. If you're open to it, I can send you over that list. I've also got some specific quantities in mind as well. So if pricing works, I'm ready to place an order. Who could I send that list to? Right? Like if you take that approach, they're like, oh, okay, like that's a customer. That's somebody who, if we can meet his pricing and if we have what he needs, he's probably going to buy. AKA that's commission in my pocket if I'm a sales rep taking that call. So I'm going to be much more likely to work with that person and help them open that account, right?
Yeah, that was very well said. Carlos, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I like that. I like your dog there, Carlos. I've got
Yeah,
mine's right here behind me,
yeah, I saw
just
it.
chilling.
Chilling.
Yeah.
How old is your dog?
How old is he?
Yeah,
He'll be 3 actually in like 2 weeks.
this is 13 and he got just blind, so I have to get him because he goes all over
Oh no.
jumping all over.
Uh,
Corey, let me ask you something. What is your categories that you focus on wholesale, if you don't
so
mind?
yeah, no, good question. So I always recommend people, I like the unsexy categories, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they start selling on Amazon, they're like, oh, I want to sell supplements or I want to sell video games or electronics or beauty. And now there's money to be made in every category. There's no doubt about that. But I like the mindset of, there's not many people that wake up one day and say to themselves like, oh, I want to sell door fasteners on Amazon, or I want to sell door hardware on Amazon, or these just totally random unsexy categories. So what I tell people, I'm like, start with tools, start selling automotive, start selling industrial and scientific. I love industrial and scientific. I've sold so many different products in that category that had great margins that people just don't even source. They don't even think to buy. And other categories like sports and outdoors and patio, lawn and garden, right? Like those 5 categories I love and I think have so much opportunity. One thing I would say is just avoid supplements. That's one category that all the big supplement brands tend to sell on Amazon themselves, and the ones that don't usually either don't do that much volume or the competition is just so like the margins are just razor thin. That's just the one category that I say just don't bother with. Everything else I think is fair game.
And lately they are like with the transparency codes and supplement category.
Yeah, because there's so much fraud and there's so much counterfeiting in the supplement space. I mean, it's like it was an issue a couple years ago, but it's like a big deal. Like a lot of especially big supplement brands are getting knocked off. And I mean, Amazon is, the FTC is kind of breathing down their neck too to make sure they police that. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't mess with supplements.
And if I don't mind, I can ask one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry. So when I believe you use Smart Scout, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I've been watching the videos a little bit, and when you filter the revenue, what do you focus on the revenue on brands like me? Like I don't, like example, I'm not going that big, so
Hmm.
to get the direct brand direct with the brand, where do you think to focus between 15,000 to 50K or I don't know.
Yeah, so good
Range.
question. So I always, and I'm glad you brought up Smart Scout because there's a resource I'll share with you guys here in the chat in a second. But I always tell people when you're setting those revenue filters, like the estimated monthly revenue filters, I like to
Mhm.
set it pretty wide with a minimum of 5K a month and a maximum of 500K a month, right?
Got it.
Realistically, your sweet spot's probably going to be in the like 15 to 50K a month range. Like those are brands that have traction, they're selling already, but they probably could use a little help. Versus, but you still want to have like the bigger brand, 500K a month is still a pretty big brand, but there's plenty of brands that are selling, two, three, four, 500K a month that you can land, right? You don't have to place huge orders a lot of times to land those brands. And the ones that are maybe only at 5K a month, you don't want to filter those out because maybe they're only at 5K a month today, but maybe they just launched last month. Like maybe they're growing rapidly and we don't want to miss those. But I'm glad that you brought up Smart Scout because what I was saying earlier when I like today earlier today, I put together a full, it's basically a Google Doc, but it's a 10-page Google Doc and it's just like a Smart Scout course and it's free.
Nice.
And I'm sharing it with you guys here. No like opt-in or anything. I'm just put it in the chat. But it's meant to be, it kind of walks you through the four main Smart Scout tools. And then each section, there's like a beginning, intermediate, advanced section. And at the end of each section, there's like almost like a little mini test, almost like a little mini exercise to kind of test your knowledge on that. So I just put that Google Doc in the chat there, completely free. You guys should have view only access to it.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, just let me know if for some reason that link doesn't work, but that should be super helpful.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you
it's
so
pretty
much.
good. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
course.
Okay, so the next question we had was, I'm scrolling up. Chris had said, how are you specific about what you want to buy if you don't have their price sheet yet to know what would be profitable? I'm assuming you're just saying what you want that they sell, lower down the tier, maybe not the highest. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's where you're again, you got to keep in mind that whatever you say in that initial call, they're not necessarily going to hold you to it, right? It's not like you're going to call them up and say like, "Hey, I'm looking for Milwaukee and DeWalt tools," and then you go and source their catalog and you place that order and they're like, "Wait, I thought you said Milwaukee and DeWalt," right? They're going to completely forget about it. Really, the reason you name drop specific products and brands is just to show that you've done some research and just to show that you're serious. But now, when you mention specific products, I just like to like find a brand that I like or a brand that's already selling well. Again, let's just use Milwaukee as an example. And to find that product, that specific product that I'm going to mention, or even, specific quantity that I want to mention, I'll just type Milwaukee into the Amazon search bar and find a listing that's selling well, that's not dominated by Amazon, right? I'm just going to assume that I'm going to get a price that works. So I'm just going to say, hey, this product looks good. If I can get a price that works, I'll buy 200 units, right? So that's the product that I would mention. So you just almost want to assume that you're going to get the pricing that you need because the idea is, well, hey, if I can get the price that I need on this product, then heck yeah, I'll buy 200 units, right? So that's where it almost becomes like, again, you're positioning yourself as the buyer. You're like, well, hey, I know what I want, and if you can meet my requirements, aka my price, then of course I'll buy it. So again, you're just looking for the products that, assuming you got a good price, you would want to sell. I
Thank
hope
you.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. It was quite clear. Carlos, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a couple of questions.
That's
No,
okay.
go ahead.
Corey, you saying about the cold calls. So when you call, sometimes you have the I don't know how to approach the receptionist. First, this the filter, the first filter, like you call and you say, okay, I'm with this company from Miami, whatever, and then you're trying to get the rep, the sell rep, and they like, sometimes like it's an obstacle to go to them. I don't know how, if you have any speech to them or you have any specific speech for the rep or for the receptionist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you're saying are you having trouble getting through the gatekeeper? Like you're having trouble getting
Exactly.
to the sales rep?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so and that's common, right? Like you get the gatekeeper in fact, you rarely get a hold of the sales rep on the initial call. Usually it is the gatekeeper. It's the receptionist or it's somebody in customer service. And so I just keep it simple. I say, hey, I'm Carlos. I have a retail. and I like to position myself as the buyer, not as the owner, because when you're like bigger companies have buyers, and if you're cold calling as the owner, it's just a subtle, it's
I'm
subtle.
always say that I'm the seller manager.
Yeah, okay, so that works too. But really you could say like, hey, I'm Carlos. I'm the buyer for a retail business here in Miami. We were looking to buy a few products in bulk, and I was hoping to talk to somebody in sales. Could you put me in touch with the rep that covers Miami? Right?
Got it.
Like that simple. And then rarely, if ever, are they going to say no, or are they going to probe further? If anything, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's Tom. I'll
Mm,
have him call you, or here's his number, or I'll transfer you to him. Usually are the three answers you'll get.
nice. Because lately I'm using this AI tool, Polo.
Yeah, Apollo. Yep.
Yeah, so in there is the contacts from the manager and emails and stuff like that. So that way I can go straight to to the sales rep, or with the manager or some high up
Yep.
people in the company.
Yeah, and that works too. And so when you're going directly to those people, because you got to keep in mind that they're like when you call them from your cell phone, are they usually picking up? Because a lot of times I feel like sales reps, they get so many spam calls and just calls from unknown numbers. A lot of times they don't pick up. So what I like to do is I would call, if you have their direct line, I'll call them. If they don't answer, I'll leave a voicemail, and I'll keep the voicemail kind of vague to get them to want to call me back. And then I'll
Mm,
immediately text them and say, hey, I just left you a voicemail. I'm Carlos with
follow up.
XYZ retail business here in Miami. We're looking to buy these products in bulk. Could you call me back? And then
Got it.
chances are they'll call you back like right away.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
And then Market Mel. Mel was funny here. Did you read that already, Corey?
Yeah, that's a no, are you talking about like that? That's a plant. Yeah, this room is like entire. There's nothing in this room except this monitor and this desk and the dog and the plant.
That's
I'm
funny.
moving this office upstairs. That's why.
She had another question pertaining to this call. I like it how she said it. She's like, explain it to me like I'm 5 and like English is my second language. Why would brands work with Amazon sellers when they could just work directly with Amazon and cut out us as the middlemen? I feel like Amazon is starting to do this with certain products and brands. Looking at you, Nike and Adidas, and is it mostly seller brands that work with Amazon sellers? Smaller brands, sorry.
So the reason that brands don't just go, and when you say work with Amazon, I assume you mean like why don't brands just sell directly to Amazon, like sell
Right.
to Vendor Central, which is what it's called. And the reason they don't do that is because Amazon Vendor Central, aka like Amazon as a seller, they only buy directly from brands that I think their threshold is like $10 million a year. So if the brand is not doing $10 million a year or more, whatever the cutoff is, then Amazon won't buy from them. And there are other reasons like Amazon is very like their payment terms are like net 90. So a lot of brands don't want to sell to Amazon and then wait 90 days to get paid. And Amazon also does not honor price increases. So with all the tariffs going on, brands can't go to Amazon and say, well, hey, our costs went up by 10%, so now you have to pay 10% more. Amazon literally just says no. And then, so a lot of times brands are now, they're locked into a relationship with Amazon that's now no longer profitable. So they might be selling $10 million a year of product to Amazon, but they're losing $1 million a year doing it. So there's a lot of reasons why brands either can't sell directly to Amazon or don't want to sell directly to Amazon. And then the second question was, is it mainly just small brands that would want to work with us? So not necessarily, right? I mean, there brands of all sizes are willing to work with independent third-party Amazon sellers. It really just depends on what you bring to the table and what the brand needs and what their pain points are. Like there's one brand that I sell. It's a huge brand. I mean, they're probably a, 30, $40 million a year brand, not just on Amazon, but in total. And all they want me to do is literally just sell their product on Amazon and run some ads. They don't want me to optimize their listings. They've got an in-house team that does that. They don't want me to do anything except carry product on their listings, right? That's their pain point. Then there's other brands that maybe in order for you to become a seller of theirs, they want you to provide some other value. Maybe they want you to run some ads for them, or maybe they want you to help them redo the photos on their listing. There could be a million different pain points or things that they need. And really half our job as Amazon sellers, if we're going to work directly with brands, is uncovering what those pain points are and then either helping them fix them or like referring them to the people that can fix them. A lot of times we don't even need to be the ones that can help them fix them. Like I'm not the best when it comes to listing optimization. In fact, I don't know much about it, but I know people who are really good at that. So there's been situations where I've kind of bartered that. I'll say, hey, I don't know how to optimize your listings, but I know Sam who does. So how about if you let me become an authorized seller, I'll loop Sam in and we'll get you a discounted rate on what he normally charges and get him to kind of touch up your listings. And then I will then pay you to buy your inventory as an authorized seller, right? So there's like a million different ways you can structure it. So I hope that answers the questions there.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. And then Shelly and Brian said, what will be a good budget to have to make a first PO from a brand direct?
So it very much depends. It's brand by brand. So some brands will have no minimum. Some brands will let you buy, one case or 10 units. Other brands will have a minimum of some sort. It might be $100, it might be $500. But really, the minimums are a lot lower than you'd probably expect. Like I haven't seen too many brands that have a minimum above, 500 bucks. And again, it varies. Bigger brands might have bigger minimums, but it's probably a lot lower than you think.
That's really surprising to me.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. But I mean, really, a lot of times it's these big distributors that have big minimums. Like there's one distributor that I bought from where their minimum was 50 grand, and that was for new customers. And once you were a customer, then there was no minimum. But they were just trying to weed out all the people who weren't serious. But yeah, most brands you'll find minimums are low to non-existent.
okay, that's good to know. And then another one was, so when you are talking to the brand and the distributor, you don't mention where you're selling, and what if they ask what you intend to do with the products?
So yeah, I usually don't lead with the fact that like, hey, I'm Corey and I'm going to sell your products on Amazon, right? I just like to position myself as just an e-commerce professional. So I'll say, hey, I'm Corey. I sell products online. We have multiple sales channels. And the key is you never want to lie, right? So if you truly only sell on Amazon, then you don't necessarily want to lead with like, hey, I'm going to sell your products on Amazon, but you can just say, hey, I'm an e-commerce professional and we sell your products online. And if they dig deeper and they say, well, where online? That's when you really want to be able to confidently say Amazon and lean into that. Don't be because a lot of sellers will kind of be like, oh, well, we're going to sell it on Amazon. And the person on the other end can kind of just smell that lack of confidence and they're like, we don't really want that. But if you're like, well, yeah, we're planning to sell it on Amazon where we've got an established presence and we sell XYZ other brands in your niche and we've been selling there for X amount of months or X amount of years and we've got really deep knowledge in the platform and we think that we can move X amount per month of your brand and we're really excited to do it. Like if you can kind of have that approach, then it totally flips it on its head and they're like, okay, well, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. So again, the key is just never lie, but also you want to position yourself as more of an e-commerce business owner than just like an Amazon seller.
Thank you. And can you settle a debate in the chat here? Should you have different accounts for different niches?
No, I only have one seller account. Now, like, does it hurt to have a backup account just in case something happens to your main account? No, it doesn't hurt. But you got to think about the leverage that you get from having one account. So like my account is over 8 years old at this point. It's got 2,000 seller reviews or like close to 2,000 reviews, a lot of sales history, ungated in a lot of different brands. So for me, I feel like I get more benefit from just continuing to grow my one account, getting ungated in more brands, getting more reviews, getting more sales history. Because if I had split all that sales history over, two, three, four different accounts, then I might just have three different accounts that have minimum amount of reviews each and a minimum amount of sales history each and ungated in a smaller number of brands each. So what you gain by having multiple accounts and maybe having more divert like a more or less risk in terms of diversity, you lose in not having that that leverage of, more reviews and more sales history and um, more brands that you're ungated in. Now, I think you don't have to have that many accounts. If you're a mega seller and you're doing like 8 figures a year, then yes, I think it makes sense to have like a backup account or two just to really manage risk. But if you're doing, 6 figures or even multi 7 figures per year, it probably just makes sense to just have one really solid account.
And then the other part that people were trying to debate about was, are you even allowed to have multiple accounts on Amazon? We thought that it was against the terms of service or terms of use, whatever. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so you can have multiple accounts now. It used to be against terms of service. You used to technically not be allowed to have multiple accounts. Now you can, and the caveat is you cannot sell the same brands, or I think it's you can't be selling the same brands or the same ASINs two on both accounts, right? So if you can have two accounts or even three accounts, but they've got to be entirely separate business entities, separate bank accounts, separate EIN numbers. Everything has to be completely separate, and you can't sell the same products. So it's like an entirely separate business. So you got to keep that in mind too, that if you want a second account just to mitigate the risk, you've got to consider the fact that that's got to be its own LLC and its own bank account and its own credit card and its own tax return, right?
Hmm.
So there's just a lot that goes into having a second account. So really, think about that before you make that decision if that's something you want to do.
Is it true? Brian just said if one gets shut down, do they both get shut down?
Yeah, so that's a hard question to answer. I've seen cases where Amazon will like Amazon suspends account A and then they automatically suspend account B because they know they're connected. Even though you're not selling the same products, Amazon is really, really good at like tracing accounts together. So if you think you're being secretive about like, oh, well, I use this account on a VPN and I never log in my house, and like Amazon can link them together. They're really good at that. With that said, again, I've seen some situations where one account goes down, second one goes down with it, but I've seen other situations where one account goes down and second account never goes down. So there's like no rhyme or reason. So I can't
Like
really
everything
answer it.
else on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I can't really answer it knowledgeably.
Shelly and Brian say, do you only sell on Amazon or are you in other marketplaces too?
Yeah, so I only sell on Amazon. I have a Walmart seller account. I've never sold anything on it, but I do have the account. And then we've got a website called powertoolplus.com that we'll use that website a lot of times when reaching out to like tool or automotive or industrial and scientific distributors or brands. And the reason I can confidently like pitch that website and lead with that website is because we do make multiple sales per week on that website. Like probably 2 sales per week on average on that website, which is funny because we've never advertised it. Nobody even knows it exists. I think that people just are searching for the brand, like certain brands, and our website just pops up. Because, if you look it up, it's pretty professional website. Like we had a guy on Fiverr put it together, and then we went into the Shopify and we added like one of our distributors is able to drop ship just individual onesie twosie products. So we basically copied all of the products from that distributor onto our website. So that way, when a customer buys a product on our website, we can just drop ship them that product from our distributor. So we can like truthfully and honestly say, yes, we've got powertoolplus.com is one of our sales channels where we make sales and we do business on that website too. But 99.9% of our sales are on Amazon.
Thank you for that. Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, Corey. So I have a distributor that they asked me for like 20K of MOQ. So we're thinking to partner. I'm thinking to partner with one or two more friends. So, but I was thinking, how do you do if you do a group buying and then for the invoices and stuff like that, how can you do that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the distributor would have to be willing to invoice each of you guys separately. So you would just need to be upfront with them and say, okay, well, if your minimum's 20K, I've got a friend, or you could even say like I've got a business partner that I'm going to be buying this meeting your minimum together with. I just need to confirm that each of us is going to get our own invoice and essentially be invoiced separately
Straight
for
up.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I'm assuming this distributor's authorized and everything, but just to have that extra layer of safety, it might help to call the brand beforehand and just before you place that order, say, hey, is this distributor one of your authorized distributors? And just let the
Got it.
brand confirm that too. Now, if
Nice.
they're like, if they're a big, if they've been in business for a while and they have a website and that you can look them up on Google Maps and you can see their warehouse, then they're probably fine. I just give that caveat because again, there's just so many distributors that call themselves distributors or call themselves wholesalers and they're just not authorized.
Mm, got it. And what do you think about ASD? My last question. Sorry, Amanda.
It's okay.
So ASD used to be really good. I used to love ASD. I used to go every year. I've been 3 or 4 times, but it's not worth it anymore because 95% of the exhibitors at ASD they're just gray market wholesalers. They're not authorized distributors. There's not even many brands at ASD. It's mainly just liquidators and closeout guys and wholesalers who are just not authorized by the brand. So
Okay.
again, like year and a half, 2 years ago, even you could get away with that. And I used to go to ASD and buy a ton of product and sell it and make good money, and it was great. But nowadays, it's not like I could not with a clean conscience recommend anybody go to ASD anymore.
Nice.
There's
So
just
follow.
there's just better shows. Like you're gonna have way more success finding. So you said you're in Miami?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a million trade shows that happen in Miami each year. I would go, so there's a website called 10 times, like the number 10 times.com. And
Okay.
I'll even share my screen and show you guys.
Thank you,
So,
Corey.
yeah, this is a really cool underrated website that somehow nobody knows about. I didn't find out till recently. You go to 10times.com, and this is basically just like a giant trade show directory
Hmm.
of, let's see, all events. So you can search by location and it's international, not just in the US. But you can say like, all right, I want to see trade shows in the US, in, let's just say like arts and crafts in Chicago or in Brooklyn, let's say. And it's just going to give you all these different events. Now, they're not all going to be trade shows, but the vast majority of them are going to be trade shows. And again,
Nice.
you can filter by category, location, country, anything, and it's just going to give you so many different opportunities. So that's what I recommend is just like find one in your city or your town or kind of your local area and go to one of those because you're gonna have way more success going to something like that than you would ASD anymore.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're
And then
welcome.
Jen asked, do we need to have any of the following? Do you need a website, a professional email, not a Gmail, and a VAT registration number?
So VAT registration is only for Europe, as far as I understand. So again, I don't know if that person is in Europe, but that wouldn't apply to the US. Professional email address is definitely something you got to have, but that's something that takes, 60 seconds to set up and cost $7 a month through Google Workspace. A website is not like you don't have to have a website. Like don't let not having a website stop you from making the calls. What I'll say about a website is that a good website is an asset, but a bad website hurts you more than no website at all.
Mm.
So, don't force the website, just get that professional email address and start making the calls, is what I would say. And then, you mentioned VAT, which isn't a thing in the US, but you would need a reseller certificate, which the process for this varies by state, but really for every state, it just involves going to your state's Department of Revenue and registering as a retailer. And what they'll do is they'll give you what's called like a sales and use tax number typically. And so that's the number or the form that you'd use to you basically give that form to your supplier when setting up an account. And typically your supplier is going to ask they're going to ask for your resale certificate for your ship to state. So if you're shipping to a prep center that's in a different state, then they're going to ask for like your resale information for that particular state. So just keep that in mind.
And if you ship to New Hampshire where it's sales tax free, there is no resale certificate, so you're all
Exactly. Yep. So like that, like New Hampshire, I think Delaware, Oregon, Montana, there's a few more states, but yeah. So like you guys are out at New Hampshire, right? That's where your prep center is. Yeah. So if you guys ship to Andrew and Amanda's prep center, then that's a non-issue.
quick, just a little PSA. We don't have a loading dock. Don't send us a tractor trailer.
Yeah, but it's nice that you can just get a lift gate on those shipments and they'll take care of that.
Yeah, for sure. One more question before we get back to Carlos. Hold on one sec, Carlos. Chris says, if a brand is willing to sell to you for Amazon and you can afford the capital, is there ever a reason not to ask for exclusivity? Exclusive, I can't say that word. Could it jeopardize the sale?
Asking for exclusivity. So I usually recommend people, I don't like to pitch exclusivity right off the bat because I'm of the mind that exclusivity is something that you have to earn, right? So if you're if you are calling a brand and on that very first PO you're asking for exclusivity, that's kind of like walking up to a girl in the bar and just like asking her to marry you, right? Like you haven't been on any dates yet. It's kind of the same thing. So you want to have some rapport with the either the owner or your sales rep. You want to build that relationship. You want to show them that you're a good customer, that you place orders, that you pay your bills on time, that you're adding value, and then again, once you built that rapport, you've kind of earned the right to ask for that exclusivity. So that's not to say that you can't have that conversation on the first time. Like sometimes they're open to discussing it, but a lot of times they're not gonna give it to you until you've earned it, which might take anywhere from a few months to a few years, really.
That was a good question. Go ahead, Carlos.
These comments are funny.
Or do you have your warehouse or do you use a prep center?
I use a prep center these days.
And do you have only one or couple prep centers around the country?
So I like to have a good East Coast and a good West Coast. I just think it helps to have one on each coast because like one of our main distributors is out of Oregon. And so obviously it doesn't make economic sense for them to ship to the East Coast. So we have them ship to a West Coast prep center. And then most of our other suppliers are on the East Coast and we just have them ship to the East Coast prep center.
All right,
That's
nice.
very strategic, very smart.
Yep.
I know people that do OA that do this. They have them spread out all over the place.
Yep.
Um, are there any other questions? Drop them in the chat. Corey, thank you for that PDF you sent for the
Smart
smart.
Scout.
Oh, go ahead, Dari.
I have a question about your operations. When do you decide to hire a VA? Is it like reactive or do you plan scale ahead of time?
Yeah, good question. So I like to hire a VA, like my hierarchy of when to hire a VA is first, I like to hire someone for admin. So it's just like the admin task first, then operations, and then sourcing last. So sourcing is always going to be the very last thing that I outsource just because it's the thing that makes you money. It's kind of the lifeblood of your business. And really the advice that I give to people when it comes to hiring VAs is I would not think about hiring one until you just have so much opportunity that you're just dropping the ball in your business, right? Like the example that I like to give is if you're doing wholesale and you're starting to get some traction and maybe you're placing some orders, if you get to the point where you're not able to respond to suppliers in a timely manner, or you've had an application sitting in your inbox for a week for a supplier that you just haven't had the time to like fill it out and submit it because you've been so busy sourcing the ones that you already have, that's a really good sign that it's time to get a VA, right? To free up the admin side of the business, which is the filling out of the supplier applications and responding to these emails and just coordinating a lot of these kind of lower dollar per hour tasks. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, it does. My other question is, do you still have some tasks that you feel like could be delegated, but you still haven't at this point of your business?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some stuff that I'll still handle myself that I guess I don't necessarily have to. Like But I think part of it too is just like I will just see things and I'll just handle it right away. Even though I know it's like, okay, that email came in, like I know my team's gonna get to it. That maybe they're like off right now, and when they start in the morning, like they'll answer it, but I'm here, I'll just go and answer it myself. So a lot of times it's just like staying disciplined and letting the team do what I hired them to do. But, stuff that I'll still do myself, like I still like to call our best sales reps or our best accounts and just kind of check in and build that rapport. Even though my team might be coordinating with them on a daily basis on like specific shipments or specific products, I still like to just keep those high level relationships intact. So, but yeah, there's always going to be some stuff that either it's almost like an oxymoron, but there's like stuff that I'm too lazy to delegate, so I just do it myself. When in reality, it's like delegating it would be the lazy move. Not lazy, but you know what I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I know we've hit an hour. I know your time is valuable. I wanted to ask one more thing, but before I ask my question, Shelly and Brian had said about the website, do you have any specific things to add to the landing page to have a great look to brands?
Yeah, so when it comes to the website, I just tell people like don't overcomplicate it. It can be just a simple one page, basically a landing page, and all it's got to say is who you are and what you do. That's really it, right? So it doesn't need to say anything crazy. Just this is our company and this is what we do on a one page landing page. And again, as long as it looks professional and it's easy to read and there's no typos, no misspellings, then that'll be enough.
Thank you. Dari, do you have a question or did you just forget to put your hand down?
I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, Jen says, where can we find out more info about being one of your students to learn the secrets of your universe? So I actually wanted to get into that. So I am in Corey's Wholesale Accelerator. Actually, we joined after Miami, and a shameless plug. Yes, I have an affiliate link, but you guys know that I don't share things if I don't actually use it or like it or whatever. Um, Corey, I actually wanted to talk to you about this. I don't know how to get in touch with you personally without talking to an AI or a VA. So I wanted to let you know that like I even dove into it today beforehand just so I could like refresh and stuff. I really like that you made it easy to digest and you actually have videos about the Smart Scout thing that you dropped in here in the Wholesale Accelerator. And the Wholesale Accelerator, I think, is like $35 a month. And I like that you broke it down week by week. So if you think you're overloaded with work right now, you're busy with your kids, you have a full-time job, like he breaks it down day by day, and the day by day videos are like 5 minutes long, and your homework will take you maybe an hour. It's that easy, and you can actually put it and implement it into your actual life. Um, so I do have a link for that. But Corey, is there anything you want to talk about Wholesale Accelerator?
No, I mean, you summed it up and I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, guys, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's a school community where I'm in there answering questions every day. It's like Amanda said, it's 35 bucks a month, so we made it super accessible. And so there's the community component, right, which is the school and answering questions and asking questions and hanging out with people inside the community. And then the actual classroom section of the accelerator is just like she said, we tried to make it as accessible and as digestible as possible. So it's really essentially a 21-day course. And that sounds long, but we made it to where each day it's like a 3 to 5 minute video and you only unlock one day at a time. So when you join, you can only do day one and you don't unlock day two until day two. So the goal is just to make it super step by step. And it's like, all right, day one, this is exactly what you do on day one. It's these two things. Day two, these are exactly what you do on day two. And again, it's meant to be super step by step and super easy to follow. So nothing much more to add aside from that. If you guys want to be a part of that, we'd love to have you. We've got a really good group there. I think we've got 65 or 70 or so
Yeah.
people in there. And yeah, it's a good group. So appreciate the kind words and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Anybody have any other questions, drop them in our Discords. I'll see if I can get Corey to kind of answer them, or maybe I can help. But thank you so much, Corey, for dedicating an hour of your time for this free community and dropping a very accessible option to get started in wholesale. And yeah, guys, we'll see you on the next one.
Definitely.
Thank
Yeah. Thanks so
you.
much, guys. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you.
See ya.
Good.